Yeah.
Let's go to this article here, and we're just going to use this as a jumping off point because we have a bunch of other things, a bunch of other takes on. I just want to get everybody up to speed. Like this has just got the basics, and I took the BBC because they were the most. Wow, somebody's going to clip that. I took the BBC because
Oh, no. No, no,
yeah.
no.
Because it generally, in this case, it was the most non-biased that I could find. Everybody else had their take, so I just grabbed this. So here we go. The U.S. Ukraine U.S. troops on high alert over standoff. Russia continues to deny planning military action against Ukraine, despite massing 100,000 troops nearby. President Biden held a video call with European allies on Monday as Western powers aim for a common strategy against Russian aggression. The Pentagon said no decision has yet been made on whether to deploy troops. It would only happen if the NATO military alliance decides to activate a rapid reaction force if other situations develop around Russian troop building, said Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. So essentially, there's 8,500 combat troops on high alert, so they can come out at short notice. And over the weekend, 90 tons of U.S. lethal aid, including ammunition, frontline defenders, arrived in Ukraine. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. And let me see here. Howard, have you got your screen shared to move on from this and move into this, I should say?
I do. If it's gonna hurt your bandwidth, I don't have to share a screen quite yet.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna close some things. I have like 85 tabs open from school that I'm gonna work on closing, and you jump into
Okay.
it.
All right. So I'm gonna break this whole Russian-Ukraine thing down, and it's gonna be basically two parts. The first part is gonna be my analysis and why I don't think Russia is going to invade Ukraine. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I'll back up my assertion, and then I will also, in the second part, I will tell you how it is most likely to go down if they were to invade. If I am totally wrong and everything I'm saying makes no sense, I'll tell you the most likely scenario, and I have some slides to pull up that I will share screen, and I'll show you how it will most likely happen, and I'll give you my analysis on that. So, to start off with, one of the reasons I find this so interesting and why I've looked so deeply into this is I was deployed in 2008 to Georgia, not the state, the country, just below Russia. And basically, it was more or less the same situation then as it is now. So I find all of this very interesting. It's kind of just like deja vu. All right. So, part one.
You got your screen
Part
shared?
I don't need to share it yet.
Okay, just let me know.
Nope. This is just gonna be some talking. I can. I'll tell you when I need to share.
Okay, well you're on. You can share it whenever you're ready.
Gotcha. All right. So number one. Let's. I've made a lot of notes. I'll try to make this make sense to everybody. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, or if you want to challenge me, feel free to challenge. That's fine. First, we need to start looking at what Russia's actually doing. Yes, Russia has been staging what we call BTGs, or battalion tactical groups, along the Belarusian border, so Belarus, and in eastern Russia. They've been doing that for about a year. So it's now kind of making big news, but this has been happening. This is really nothing new. If you actually go watch Russian domestic media, their whole take is that the West is kind of going crazy over this. And they keep saying they have no plan to escalate in Ukraine. The Russian Security Council actually just met, and there was really no talk of any escalation in Ukraine. Right. So a couple months ago, during another Security Council, Putin had said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that he wants to put pressure on the West to get security guarantees against NATO. AKA, he doesn't want Ukraine in NATO, and because he wants that buffer, right? So in 1989, in 1990, and 1993, we gave these. We told Russia that we would not encroach on the Russian border, right? That has been a lie. Obviously, we can see throughout the years now that is not we've not held true to those words. So my analysis is that most of this is really just posturing. What Putin is doing is putting all these troops on the border, and it's really only there's about 60 BTGs in the low end, it may be closer to 80. These uh, battle groups. Now, each BTG, frontline troops, you're talking about 800 people per BTG, and then probably another 3 or 4 thousand in supporting personnel per BTG. Now, you need to try to keep in mind that NATO's very torn on this whole issue. It's mainly the US and Great Britain that have been propagating this narrative, right? It isn't Russia. It's not even Ukraine. You know, Ukraine hasn't really said a whole lot. In fact, when we pulled our personnel from the embassy, Ukraine came out and said in a statement that it was too soon, right? There was no real reason. There's no real imminent threat of war. And I think they're right. And they would probably be in a position to know. So we need to keep in mind that people keep talking about the Russian annexation of the Crimea. And they use that as a way to say, look they're trying to take over all of Ukraine. I don't have that same view. Crimea was vastly majority ethnically Russian. And the Crimea multiple times had tried to vote, basically, in the Ukrainian parliament to be annexed to Russia. Ukraine kept saying, no, 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 we're not going to allow it. And so Russia came in and said, fine, we'll just take it. This is back in like 2014, 2015. So they did. And that was under Obama. And of course, Obama did nothing. The left said, yay. And the right said, you're a wimp, basically. Because that was the whole famous, this is our red line. And, Russia crossed that red line and the U.S. did nothing. As we should have, right? We should not have done anything. And of course, Obama got excoriated by the right for not enforcing that red line, right? Now, let's bring it forward real quick to Biden. And the apparent threat is now that Russia's going to come across the eastern border of Ukraine and invade the Donbass region further than it already has, and maybe push all the way to the Dnieper River. And now, in a big switch, the right says, no, 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 we can't do that. We don't want to send our young men and boys off over there. None of these politicians, none of them have any principles, right? They will take whatever the opposite stance of the person in power. If their party's not in power, they're going to take the opposite stance. So just be aware of kind of like the overarching political theater that's going on. So the reason this has been so good for Russia is that Russia has now managed to get NATO to say Ukraine will not become part of NATO anytime soon, if ever. Right? So we've played into this whole game of Putin, and he's winning. He's getting these. He's getting us to say that no, we're not gonna take Ukraine, put him in NATO, and that's exactly what he wants. Again, Russia many times has said they're not going to invade Ukraine. Russia wants security guarantees. They're getting them, and we're playing into it. So, I gotta scroll.
What would happen? Let me break in here real quick. What would happen if Russia did invade Ukraine? What would be your prediction? What would the U.S. do? What would NATO do? What would happen?
So it would depend. Now, if we're going to talk about that now, let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you what I would see happening.
Let's do it.
Do this.
They should be able
Screen.
to see everything that you do.
Go live.
Oh,
All right. So I'm going to bring up a screen. I'm going to draw some stuff on here for you.
okay, there we go.
Let's find a good screen. That's a good screen. All right. Can you guys see that?
They should be able to. We are meta streaming here, so let's hope that
Let's hope this works.
let's hope the hardware stays up and everything works properly.
All right. So actually, I want to wait before I start drawing on this to make sure that they can actually see the map up on the screen here. But while we're waiting,
stream pulled up on YouTube.
What's that?
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
I do, but it's behind.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So while we're waiting, let's go ahead. We could probably read some of these chats.
Yeah, let's do that.
Where are we at?
Mug says, yeah, apparently, according to Reddit, the Biden thing is a conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's stupid. Cabretti Comics says, A says updates on Russia at the moment. What time is it over there? If you mean Russia,
it depends. They span 7 time zones,
I was gonna
or
say,
12.
Yeah, but Moscow, I want to say, is it 9 hours ahead?
I'd have to take a look. I'm not sure.
I have friends in Moscow because I've been there multiple times. So I just don't remember what time it is there. Let me look it up. I want to say it's like 9 hours.
Yeah, probably something like that. Cabretti Comics says expanding NATO to the east was a mistake in my opinion. I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, very likely. Moscow, it's 10 hours ahead from the U.S. is what
10 hours.
Says, yeah.
Okay. All right, and the map is showing up. So, all right, if I'm wrong, and if Russia's going to invade, I'm gonna use my mouse so don't excoriate me too bad about how bad this writing is.
Hey, the stream health is still good, so I'm just happy about that.
Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to make a couple notes here. This is Belarus. Get the S in there. There we go. All right. This line, because I don't know how well you guys can see it, we're going to call it Rus, but this is Russia. This right here is the Dnieper River. Now that is spelled
with a D. I knew that one.
D-N-I-E. Oh, this is horrible. It's hard to do with a mouse.
Yeah, it is.
Dnieper, but we pronounce it Dnieper. That's the Dnieper River. All right. If I'm wrong, the invasion basically has to happen. It's kind of hard to say, but let's call it the next 3, maybe 4 weeks at probably the longest, because at this point, everything's thawed up, everything's frozen, and all of these BTGs in Belarus and in Russia, right along this border here, they're made up of motorized units and mechanized units, so tanks and motor troops. So if they're going to invade, it's going to have to be while the ground is frozen. This entire area here is great for bringing tanks in, which is why they have staged all these BTGs up in this region here. So let's say in the next 3 weeks, Russia decides to invade. Here's the most likely scenario. They're going to come through this way. Here, right? This might get a little messy. And they're gonna push. Generally speaking, they're probably gonna push all the way to the Dnieper River. One of the reasons they're gonna push that far no further, and there's 2 reasons really. The first one being the Dnieper River's huge, and there's only like 6 big bridges. So if Russia starts to invade, expect that Ukraine goes and blows all these bridges. Now, Russia's going to push to this area this year if this happens, and they're probably going to stop. They're not going to go any further. Kiev is under all my horrible writing right there. Kharkiv is right here. Donetsk is right here. So Kharkiv is a huge hub, right? So the first thing that you'll probably see happening is forces coming over and taking over Kharkiv, because from there you have highways that'll branch out all the way to Kiev up here and down along the Dnieper here and in the middle. So they'll take Kharkiv, and then they're going to have to take Dnipro, which is right here. That's another big city, and this is one of the major ways to get across the Dnieper River. So Dnipro, the city of Dnipro, will have to be taken by the Russians if they invade this year. If they were to invade, they'd have to take Dnipro. They'd have to take Kharkiv. They would have to take Donetsk. Now, they've taken part of this region here, but they've not fully taken Donetsk. One of the reasons they're going to have to take Donetsk is because you have Mariupol right there. Now, the reason Mariupol is so important is we've now watched the Russians bring in ships. They've brought in 6 from up north, and they are sitting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're sitting right down here next to Odessa. My guess is that they would not necessarily invade Odessa. They could, but my guess is they're putting pressure here to get Ukrainian troops down in this region if they were to invade. Again, I don't think this is likely. I'm just saying this is what you can expect. What I would expect is that Ukrainian forces try to protect Odessa, right? That's a great Black Sea port. They're going to want to protect it. In fact, they're going to have no choice. They're going to have to protect it.
Do you know, Howard, is that a transport group that's down there? The battle group of ships?
Yes, it is. I think there's, I'd have to go back and look at my notes. I think 4 of them are, what do they call them? They're landing ships. So in other words, they're going to have troops on board.
Cruisers or?
Nope, they're LSs, so landing ships. Yeah, so they're landing ships.
But now, no, I'm asking, are there cruisers in the group or as well, or like for an offshore bombardment, or is it nothing that serious?
No, that would not be that serious. No, these are landing ships. I think there are a couple of small cruisers with them, but they wouldn't be able to put up much of a fight against Odessa in and of itself. Now, there is another battle group that just left, and they do have destroyers in that group. That just happened today. This is all moving very fast. So, but my guess is they are here to get troops here. But what I would expect them to do is probably this is Crimea, by the way, right here. Right. This is what Russia already owns, right? I'd expect this group to not attack Odessa, and I'd expect them to come up through here to Mariupol, because this is already semi-controlled by the Russians, or at least, this is the Russian border right here. The Russians are already there. They could take Mariupol if they wanted to, and they would have to, because they need to be able to supply all these troops that they'd be moving in up here and up along the Dnieper. Again, I don't think this is likely, but it is possible. So I'm going to we're going to X out of this real quick. I've laid that out. I'm going to show you, if I can find it.
Are you good? By the way, the stream health has been good this whole time, so looks like it's working. It looks like they should be able to see everything.
Beautiful. So this right here it's going to be, I actually, I didn't have time to do all this myself. This is from S2 Underground. They're a YouTube channel. They're great to go follow. They do a lot of Intel stuff. These are former Intel guys. and they put this together. And these are, as of at least the 21st, it's a decent estimate of how many, like where certain groups are, where certain BTGs are. So there's a bunch. And here down here, oh, I can't draw, can I? Hold on. Doop. Now I can. All right. This is what I was talking about. That's that group of landing ships right here.
Mm.
And this is Crimea, where they already have groups there, ground troops and all sorts of stuff. And up here, this is Belarus. Again, like I said, there's a bunch of BTGs up here. I do not expect them to do anything. I do not expect them to cross this side. So again, here's the Dnieper. I do not expect them to come down through here. Highly unlikely.
Why?
If anything.
Why?
Okay, so it's a political reason, right? So Eastern Ukraine, all of this is already in contention.
Right.
The Western Ukraine, so all of this is not. So there are a lot of S-400 anti-aircraft batteries or surface-to-air missiles located up here in Belarus. My guess is that is not so much to take care of Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have much of an air force. This is a deterrent against NATO. I would expect, worst case scenario, I don't expect this at all, but if it were to come down to an invasion, I think you would probably see them come down into Kiev. They'd have to hold Kiev, which is right here. That's the capital of Ukraine. And there's enough forces up here that could spread them all out on this line. Now, this line, the Dnieper River, they would have to be bringing in a lot of infrastructure. They'd have to build their own bridges because we can assume that Ukraine would have blown them to slow the Russians. So they're going to need all these forces, 1 for security, 2 to take Kiev, and 3 to start building infrastructure across the Dnieper. Because this is Russia over here, old Russ, and this is where all of their supplies are going to come from, or the vast majority of them. They're going to have to come across land in this way. I told you this is going to get messy.
Hundreds and hundreds of miles too.
Yes. So
and
we're talking
the infrastructure there. What's the infrastructure as far as like roads and supply lines like there? Is it well developed, or is it more like, you know, because I know
it's mostly countryside.
I was gonna say West Russia is very much the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there are a few, these red lines that you guys may be able to see. These are larger roads, and like I said, Kharkiv, right here, that would be super important because this is like the heart of Western Ukraine. And they would have to take over Kharkiv. I'm sorry, Eastern Ukraine. Now I'm getting confused. Yes. Eastern Ukraine. They would have to take Kharkiv because that's where all the main arteries run from, out to the Dnieper River. And then, and to be able to cross from there. Now, in Eastern Ukraine, there is already a battlefront, right? There's already, it's like, hold on. You know what? I'm going to get rid of all these lines because that is hard to look at. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. Eastern Ukraine. So I said earlier that... Oh, wrong button. Let's try that again. Sorry, guys.
You broke it.
I broke it.
There we go. Howard. There you go.
Yeah, I know, right? So I said earlier
this is
that...
great. Like unironically, this is really good. This is very informative.
So one of the reasons I said that I highly doubt that they're going to come, across the Dnieper, it's political, right? This whole portion of Ukraine on the left-hand side is not really in contention. There is contention right there, right? So this, and there's actually kind of like I'm going to put a dotted line, like right here. So this is the Donetsk region. There's already fighting going on here.
And
so if you were...
So the basis of this is that there's people in that region that want to be part of Russia. Is that right?
There are some. It's not like Crimea, where it was the vast majority, but there are people in this region that want to be part of Russia.
Right.
Now, most of the civilians in this region that I've just highlighted, uh, they're likely not there anymore. So if you were to see any kind of movement across the border, it might be in this already contested region, right? So I'm saying that that is the most likely, unlikely scenario. I still don't think they're going to push that far here.
When,
But if they did, yep.
when you say contested, explain what you mean by that.
So right now, the war has been going on since like 2013, 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. There's fighting going on here constantly in Donetsk. There are actual lines, where Russians hold, this airport and the Ukrainians hold, this control tower or whatever,
Right.
or this factory complex. And there's already fighting here. So if you were to see Russia move into this region, just, specifically, I wouldn't worry at all. If they push Dnipro, that's an indicator of a larger escalation. Because if they're going to take Dnipro, they've got to take Kharkiv. There's really no other way to get around that. But if they're going to do those two things, if they're going to take those two cities, they're very likely going to move all the way to the Dnieper River again, which is right there. I don't think that's likely, but if I'm wrong, that's what you'll very likely see.
So, what's stopping them other than like political pushback from NATO? But as far as like on the ground, what's stopping them from pushing to the Dnieper River? Is there really anything that would stop them?
On the ground, no.
Right.
They would absolutely crush Ukraine. There's absolutely no question about that. So in the intel circles, in the military circles, we always talk about if Russia was to invade Ukraine, they'd need 30 BTGs to take over the entire country. There are the minimum number that I've come up with is about 60 BTGs. So you're talking like maybe 110,000 forces, roughly. Looking at some satellite photos and looking at social media, it's probably closer to 70 or 80, maybe as high as 85 BTGs. We could be looking at closer to 150, 160,000 forces. But again, this has been a slow buildup over quite a long time. And so one, like I said, it's political, right? I don't think that Russia wants to trip off some big war. Two, Russia's already got what they wanted. What they wanted was for NATO to say no, Ukraine's not going to become part of NATO.
Right.
And they've basically already got that. I think they might push a little bit. Maybe they push in the Donetsk region. If they're not getting exactly what they want, they're not getting the assurances they want, maybe they push a little harder here. And then, we get some some sort of treaty, something, some other type of paper. Maybe there's something a little more they want. Another thing to keep in mind during all of this, that not all of NATO is on board with doing anything if they invade Ukraine.
Just the U.S. and the U.K., right?
That's about, well, yeah, it's Great Britain and I wouldn't even say the UK. I would just say Great Britain itself and the US. That's pretty much it. So you have to remember that Nord Stream 2 with Germany just happened. Biden, is the one who gave the green light on that. Germany doesn't want anything to do with this. France, because of Germany, doesn't want anything to do with that. France gets a lot of their natural gas and oil from Germany. So I think, did I or did I not? Maybe I didn't. Anyways, I was going to show you flights from... Oh, where did I put it? I didn't put it in here. Okay, sorry. I had an overlay of flights from Great Britain with C-17 Globemasters. They're bringing in arms to Ukraine. Now, they're not overflying Germany, and they're not overflying France. They're not overflying those countries. That would be a more direct route, by the way. I know I can't show you the whole map. I don't have it pulled up.
Right, but it's essentially flying over mainland Europe to get there instead of. Or what route are they going around over the over?
They're going up and around.
What is that? Like
Hold
Finland
on.
and Norway in them, right? They're going over that way.
Hold on. You know what? I can do one better. I'll show you where they're going.
Okay. I'm sitting here trying to think. Scandinavia, that's the term for all of those countries. Are they going that route, or that would make the most sense, I guess, if they're not going to go over mainland.
Yeah, they're going up over Denmark and then down through like Poland and Belarus into Ukraine, or maybe not even Belarus, but down through Poland. Yeah, so they're going up through Denmark, across the Baltic Sea, down through Poland into Ukraine.
Yeah, you have enough on this map right here. I can see Warsaw on it. You could make a line there, like coming through that way.
Versus, right. So you guys can't see the top part, but they would be coming in this way.
Yeah.
So this is, as we said, this is Belarus right here. I don't know what they can see. I don't know if they can see the word.
They can see it.
Oh, okay. They can see it. Great.
Yeah, they can see it. I'm watching.
Okay, good. So they're bringing all their stuff down and through here, which means they're not going through France, Belgium, Germany, or the Czechoslovakia. They're not going through any of those countries. Austria, Romania, because none of these countries want anything to do with going against Russia, and especially Germany, and especially France. Germany because of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. France because they get a lot of their oil from Germany. So the basic reason they have not overflown those countries is Great Britain is afraid that if they were to overfly these countries, that they would tell them to land their planes because they would be in their airspace. They don't want to really be tied into this. A little bit of that speculation. There is nothing public where Germany or France said that they could not do it. You know, maybe there's some back channel stuff going on. But what this really shows, I guess the bigger picture I kind of want to make sure everybody understands here. The bigger picture is that NATO is not all together on this. It's just the United Kingdom. Well, really, it's just Great Britain. When you say UK, you're also including Ireland and all that. Scotland. It's really just Great Britain and it's the US. And we've been pushing this pretty hard. Why? You know, there's a lot of theories out there. I can't really claim to know. I have my ideas, but I can't really back them up. They're just opinions. So this is my basic argument as to why it's not likely.
So I mean, yeah, I agree with you that it's not likely. But the big thing that people have been positing is, or trying to posit, is what is going to happen if, like, with the U.S. specifically, if Russia were to do this. What is the U.S. going to do? What's going to be the effect on, say, our markets? Is China going to side with Russia? Is China going to invade Taiwan? Like, what is going to be the overall outcome if Russia did do this? So, just speaking hypotheticals, like, I know you don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, like, what if? That's the thing that people are asking.
So then, okay, so if Russia does, and they only push to the Dnieper, and they do not try to take over Odessa and Kiev, and maybe they try to, not invade Kiev and they just kind of take over this eastern region to some extent. Probably not a whole lot. To everybody saying that, into our markets are already falling. The S&P's down 500. Like, we're, our markets are going to fall regardless what happens over there.
So you're saying that's a totally separate issue.
Yeah, it's a totally separate issue. Our markets are screwed either way. Which, for us normal people isn't really a big deal. I wouldn't worry a whole lot about that. In fact, we kind of want to see that happen so that prices come down. That would be a good thing for most people. Not if you own stock. If you own stock, yeah, worry. The rest of us, meh, whatever. All right. The whole thing with Taiwan and China. I know everybody's saying that this would be the perfect time for China to invade Taiwan while we're tied up here in Ukraine if this happens. This is just my thought. My analysis is that there's no way. It's not going to happen. I think people need to really keep in mind that the number one country that China exports to is the United States.
That's a good point.
By far. It's not even there's the number two is not even close.
Well, as much as our economy is dependent on them, their economy is dependent on us.
It goes both ways. It's a Mexican standoff. Like we need
Chinese
them just
standoff.
as much. It's or a Chinese standoff. You're right. Yeah, I mean we need them just as much as they need us. I think of it this way. I think that they're going to continually push to take over Taiwan. And it's going to be, they'll keep doing these flights over Taiwan. They're going to keep the pressure on because, what's a good way to put this? We think of the overflights right now as kind of crazy. We're like, oh my God, overflights.
Well, the threat is stronger than the execution. That's kind of the idea there, right? So.
Well, I think it's to get people used to the idea of that happening.
Right.
Right. We used to make a big deal about North Korea launching missiles, and now it's just kind of like, yeah, little rocket man launches missiles.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not really a big deal anymore. We don't really care. Nobody's really afraid of North Korea anymore. They don't really have the capability to launch missiles to hit mainland. Not really. So I think that's China's long-term goal may very well be to get a secondary market to sell to, whether that has to do with the Belt Road Initiative with not only, everybody thinks it's just Africa. It's not. It's also parts of South America
and North America. The Chinese
and North
companies
America,
actually they buy huge tracts of land up in Montana. They log them and then they sell them dirt cheap.
Yes, exactly. But in the short term, I think people need to remember that China is working generations ahead. Like they're looking, it's not, they're not going to invade Taiwan this year or next year or the year after. Like we're probably talking 10, 20 years down the road if the political climate makes sense at that point. Because there is no real, I mean, yeah, there's some national pride there. They want Taiwan because they think it's theirs. But from an economic standpoint, there's no real big economic reason to have Taiwan other than it put a finger in our eye.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really benefit them. Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of China, would you rather not have Taiwan and have the U.S. as your number one exporter by far? Or would you rather have Taiwan, which doesn't really buy anything from you? Like, what makes economic sense? Like, I like to say, follow the money. And the money is not having Taiwan at the expense of losing the U.S. as the number one exporter. Mm-hmm. So that's my argument with that. You can take it, leave it.
No,
but...
I'm actually very much with you on that, and that's the point that every time I talk about this China-Taiwan thing with anybody, the first thing they say is like, "Oh my God, Taiwan's gonna fall," and the first thing I say is, and then what? Right? Because like
yeah,
literally, then what? What is going to be the big difference for China there? Well, they're going to piss off the U.S. The U.S. is going to put sanctions on them, and they're going to lose billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it just doesn't feel like it makes sense for them to do.
Well, and they don't just lose the U.S. They probably lose NATO. So you're talking about, because you got to remember, yeah, we may be the largest, but think about the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands, Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, Switzerland, Italy. Like they all get.
All down. Yeah, but yes, you're right. But beyond that, even China's like the internal affairs in China are not great.
No, I think that they are in for a bad next few years. In fact, there's a lot of civil unrest going on in China right now.
Yeah, I feel like them starting a war, particularly a war with the U.S., is just like, I don't think it'll happen. I think it's a very bad idea, and I think they know that it's a very bad idea.
Yeah, the Chinese are not dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I would not expect them to start a war. I would not expect them to invade Thailand. I do expect them to keep the pressure on. Thailand. I'm sorry, Taiwan. Yeah. Definitely not Thailand. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. Listen,
yeah,
you're going to invade Thailand, guys.
That. Yeah, they're not invading Thailand.
No, I mean Taiwan. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make political sense for them. I do think they'll keep the pressure on because do they want to maybe someday? Sure. But, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And at the moment, it doesn't. Just like right now, it does not make sense that Russia invades Ukraine. I
Right.
just don't see it happening. They've already gotten what they wanted out of us. Putin, again, like I said a couple months ago, he laid out this plan. He said, "I'm going to put the pressure on until I get the assurances that I'm looking for." And he's gotten them for the most part. There may be a few other little things, so maybe he'll keep pushing and see what he can get. Um, I don't think you're going to see anything major in Ukraine. I wouldn't worry about it.
All right. Let's catch up on these chats.